Hiya. So I listened to a young woman, young girl actually. She was in her teens, and she was telling me about addiction, what she knew about addiction. And she'd done some research, so she'd been on YouTube and looking about addiction and what it meant. She was in recovery herself, God bless her, and she quoted the Johann Hari's TED Talk, which is pretty famous. And I looked at it again. You know, you always get it doing the rounds on Facebook and this, that, and the other, people sort of telling me that addiction is what addiction is about, and they quote often the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it is connecting with others, and that's the clickbait really that he called the forget everything you thought you knew about addiction, and this is the truth about addiction. It's a bit of a, I don't know what it means, because the science around it is good. So, but it's when it lands, it lands, and people who the possibility or the reality of sobriety, it appalls them. The idea that someone, usually it's like nurses or doctors who are, they love a drink, they love a good drink. It's wine o'clock, and they like to wind down and they like to have a drink, and the idea that these 12-step zealots insist that people be abstinent, it appalls them. And to be honest, as a ex-alky addict, it appalled me, the idea that the thing I loved most in the world I had to stop doing, and I didn't think I could do it, and a lot of the stuff is about loneliness and lack of connection. Like I said in other videos, addiction thrives in isolation. But I when I went to look at this, I looked at how many people have viewed this video, and it's the most viewed. Millions and millions and millions of people have viewed this TED Talk. And it's one of the most often quoted, and it's worrying really, because it's not quite right. But it gets the attention of people. So it's widely viewed that the TED Talk by Johann Hari has a compelling narrative. It's a good story, but addiction is not simply a chemical dependency. He quoted the Vietnam War and blah blah blah, and Bruce Alexander's Rat Park study. It's powerful. It's a powerful line. It's memorable, emotional, and resonant, and deeply appealing in a fragmented world, in a world where people are not connecting. Since the 1979, since Margaret Thatcher, people have been sort of moving away from each other. There's been a lack of connection. But is it true? As someone with over 3 decades of sobriety and a former CEO of one of the UK's leading 12-step charities, I can say with gratitude and clarity that connection is essential. But the idea that connection replaces sobriety or renders it secondary is not only misleading but a little dangerous. So, 1. The science of addiction is a little bit more complex. Hardy oversimplifies the neuroscience of addiction. He points out to the Bruce Alexander experiment, where rats have enriched environments and choose social interaction over morphine as proof of that environmental factors are key in addiction. Yet modern addiction science tells us a more nuanced story. Addiction is a brain disorder marked by dysfunction in the reward system, impulse control and motivation. Environmental factors like trauma, isolation and poverty matter deeply, but so do genetics, neurobiology and early developmental trauma. So many people with strong social networks still become addicted, and that doesn't. Why is that? If the science is so strong, if we behave like rats, why do people with strong social networks and not living in poverty and all that, how come they become addicts? Many people with strong family networks, personal and social capital, recover and achieve connection only after achieving sobriety, not before. So it's a bit of a, it's a red herring, and it's sort of not true. The old plumbing analogy, you have to turn the water off to fix the leaks, comes to mind. You can't get your head right. You can't develop a love and trust relationship with people until you've stopped drinking. It's very difficult because you're trapped in this sort of addictive cycle. So, as Dr. Anna Lemke, who, if you watch any more of my films, I most often quote, sort of author of Dopamine Nation. She says, addiction hijacks the brain connections and helps, but it doesn't rewire the circuitry overnight. Connection helps, but it's not an overnight job, and you have to stop first. So sobriety is when he says sobriety is not the answer, connection is, that's a lie. So sobriety is the answer, first of all. So sobriety is not the enemy of connection. This is the way he might not have meant it to sound like that, but that's all most addicts hear. Most professionals who like a drink, that's all they hear as well. So thereafter, can we sort of have like a recovery cafe and all sorts of recovery walking groups and recovery fucking this, that and the other, rather than letting people get clean and sober, which is the starting point. And then after that, let's build connections, let's build personal and social capital. But the starting point is stopping using. So its foundations. To suggest that sobriety is somehow the wrong focus is a categorical error. You cannot connect meaningfully with other people when you're still enslaved to the substance. For many alcoholics, real connection begins only after the fog of intoxication clears. Dr. Silkworth said it in the doctor's opinion, that most people need a period of defogging. Sobriety makes connection possible. It's like saying The opposite of drowning isn't swimming, it's hugging people on the shore. Connection is beautiful, but first you need to get out of the water. So that throwaway statement is the most, millions and millions and millions of people have watched that, and it's sort of dangerous. Can you imagine how many people have sort of taken that as, oh, this is the most watched video on YouTube, so it must be a fact. And he sounds, you know, plausible. He's quoting doctors, so they must know what they're talking about, really, psychologists and this and the other. But in my experience, no, they don't. So 3, connection without accountability is just a party. Johann's TED Talk neglects the role of moral responsibility in recovery. True connection requires honesty, trust and integrity. That means facing your harms, owning your story, owning your own shit, and making amends. Not just hugging strangers in a community circle. 12-step recovery understands this. It builds connection through accountability, not instead of it. Sobriety isn't just white-knuckling abstinence. It's about transformation of character and connection with the fruit of that transformation, not a shortcut. So, oversimplifying the cure risks undermining the sufferer. When you tell someone something, when you tell someone struggling with a heroin addiction or end-stage alcoholism that their real problem is lack of connection, you risk implying that if they were just less lonely, they wouldn't use, really. Addiction is a symptom of neglect, not a complex chronic illness, or that their repeated relapses are just a failure to hug more. And that is, Jesus. Like I say, addiction thrives in isolation, and we do need to connect, but that's part of it. Everyone needs to connect. This idea, it trivializes the suffering of millions, and it ignores the fact that many addicts do terrible things in the midst of close relationships. Addiction doesn't just thrive in isolation, it creates it. You'll find yourself, you and the bottle or your drug of choice, in the end. And that's not a choice. People choose to avoid you because of your addiction. So it's a good idea, right? It was poorly framed, in my opinion. To be fair, Hardy's his broader message that compassion and community should replace punishment and shame, I like it. That's true. Yeah. People do recover best in loving and supporting environments. True, again. Connection is a crucial medicine in a long-term recovery. True. Punitive drug policies have indeed failed millions. Very, very true. But to make this point by dismissing sobriety is to throw away the recovery baby out with the bathwater. So, my conclusion, the real answer is integration, not slogans. The opposite of addiction is not just connection, it is transformation. And for most of us, the journey begins with sobriety and continues through honesty, accountability, and blossoming into authentic connection, real love, real trust. Johann gave us a poetic and popular soundbite. But those of us who have walked through the flames and know it takes more than poetry to stay sober. It takes a program. It takes spiritual change. It takes owning your own mess and cleaning it up. And then it takes connection after that. But only when your hands are clean enough to reach out and your eyes are clear enough to see who you really are, it's only then that you can make connection. So my opinion of that is, well, you've heard my opinion. You need to turn the water off to fix the leaks. And although what he's saying is right, we need to stop using first. And people, he basically, there's been I've worked in the drug treatment field for a long time, and there's always been this binary argument between abstinence and harm reduction, and basically the harm reductionist who would have you on a methadone script for the rest of your life, they love this, you know, because they just say, look, here's proof. Because you won't accept these people, that's why they continue to suffer. You isolate them, use superior lot who think you're better than. You won't let them sort of into your gang because they're still using. Right, let's just get this out of the way. There's no sort of bar to NA, AA, CA. People who are still using, they can come in, you know. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop. That's it. You don't have to have stopped. You don't have to, you know, there's plenty of people who've been bouncing in and out for years. We are the last stop usually for most. So yeah, this has been used as, it's been weaponized, this TED talk, and not in a good way. I mean, it's not benefited millions probably, but many thousands of addicts who could have benefited from connection. But now I've said my bit, that the 3 or 4 people who've watched this might not. So anyway, that's my thought for the day, and we'll leave it at that, and I'll see you tomorrow.